Welcome to a very special episode of the Deacs.AI podcast, the number one higher education artificial intelligence podcast at Wake Forest University. For our first video podcast, we recruited two rock star, longtime Wake Foresters to help us out here. Today we have Mur Muchane, the Vice President of Information Technology and Chief Information Officer, and Anne Hardcastle, the Associate Provost for Academic Affairs. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'm going to forego our normal general announcements today because I feel our guests may get into some of those. So we want to jump in and we want to talk to our guests. So Mur, can you give us a little bit of your background here at the university, what you do, and maybe how you use AI?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan. Thank you for hosting Anne and I. So I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President for Information Technology and CIO. I've been in this role for the last 10 plus years, coming up on 11. So my role is to work in partnership with the campus community to provide leadership, management, vision for all aspects of information technology, including AI, in support of the institutional mission. On a personal level, I am an active user of AI. I use it daily. I view it as a companion, whether I'm drafting reports, generating communication, analyzing large data sets, and more at a departmental level as we think about how we might both enhance and expand campus services with AI. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Hi. As you said, I'm Anne Hardcastle. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk today about our academic AI strategies. I have been at Wake Forest for 23 years. I came here as an assistant professor of Spanish and film studies. So my background is in those disciplines. And I am not a daily user of AI. As someone who came in to my professional life based on communication in languages and writing, those habits are deeply ingrained, and I haven't quite yet figured out how to, I don't even remember to turn to AI at this point in my life. And I get to things and I'm like, oh, I could have done that with AI. And it just didn't occur to me. So I'm trying to figure out where I can add AI in really great things, taking meeting minutes, and drafting some initial comments or items to then go back and review for some of the areas I work on. So that in my role at the Provost office, I am responsible for our academic program portfolio. So I help people develop new academic programs, and the units that support academic programs such as the Registrar's Office, Institutional Research, the Center for Learning Access and Student Success, and the Office of Civic and Community Engagement all report to me to try to help make sure our academic programs have the infrastructure they need to succeed.
Do you have time to sleep?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Yeah, it's a fun portfolio, and it's less diverse than you think. They all kind of connect through our academic programs. And that's kind of what got me into leadership of the AI working group, is that AI is going to be so tied to our curriculum and to the essence of our academic programs in many places. So that's what is bringing me more into this space to lead this work on the academic side.
Thank you. Fantastic. So, as we've heard, both of you are very integral in the leadership of Wake Forest, and both very ingrained in developing the artificial intelligence strategy. Now, Wake Forest has two sets of guidelines for generative artificial intelligence, an academic one and an administrative one. Can you each touch on the guidelines and why the strategy was chosen to create two different ones, and maybe some of the roles involved in that?
Sure. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I think when AI really started to show up in the academic space, we were approached in the Provost office by faculty who were concerned immediately about academic integrity. I will say that led our first sort of thoughts about how we were going to guarantee student learning in this space where AI was just doing marvelous and amazing things very quickly out of the box. And so we gathered faculty from across the university, from the different schools, and we started talking about AI and about what was going on in it with AI in their disciplines and their programs. And it very quickly shifted from a focus initially on academic integrity to, okay, let's take a step back from that panic and we start seeing the ways that this is going to enhance people's professional lives in ways I think are kind of interesting now, looking a couple of years back. What we thought then and what we're seeing now is just more than we would have ever imagined right there.
That conversation has changed quickly, hasn't it?
It has changed very quickly. And so we started saying, okay, what are the skills in AI that we need to be sure that students are being exposed to and having experience using, and that they can begin to say are professional skills that they would list on resumes and as part of their educational background. And so then we started finding a way to kind of blend those perspectives where we continued to assert the significance of student learning and cognitive development and the skills that AI we're going to need for our students to be successful in what they do after Wake Forest.
So I'll add to what Anne has said. And yes, I think we were very intentional in thinking about the varied uses of AI across both academic spaces and the administrative spaces. But I'll describe the process as one that was community driven. It grew out of great collaborative work over the course of 2 years. We did have some overlap between the two groups, the academic group and the administrative group. Actually, Anne and I were the overlap between the two groups, so that cross-pollination was happening. But on the administrative side, we, like the academic side, drew membership from across campus. So we had leaders from academic administration offices, admission and financial aid, campus life, advancement of financial services, Office of the General Counsel. We had leaders in internal audit and compliance, institutional research, business strategy and transformation folks also joined us, as well as information security. So our process somewhat mirrored what was done on the academic side. On the administrative side, we looked at the actual uses of generative AI across the institution. We had lots. I remember the first several months, many folks from across campus, led by Odi Ayanku in information systems, would talk to us regularly about opportunities and use cases. So we did that. That was part of our learning process. We looked at guidelines across higher education to see what we could learn from others. I think we do that really well. In higher education, we benchmark ourselves against peers. We also consulted a number of sort of thought leaders, if you will, from other entities like Gartner Research, the Tambellini Group. And then another factor was we knew that AI would be closely connected with our existing institutional policies when it comes to information security and data classification. So that was another aspect. So broadly, it was a consultative, collaborative process, and that's how we developed these institutional guidelines.
Thank you. Yeah. For anybody interested, they can find the guidelines at ai.wfu.edu. Both sets of guidelines are listed. And you'll notice we've been very careful with our terminology and use the word guidelines. And it's important to note that these guidelines provide a framework for people to follow in a structure when they're looking for information about AI. Now, thinking about the academic side of things, and I'll probably turn to you mostly on this one, Wake Forest has taken a stance that they are guidance, but it intentionally gives professors agency to create certain policies in their own classrooms. Some students, though, have expressed a little bit of concern that the teachers' policies, professors' policies from class to class or discipline to discipline are different. It's created a little bit of confusion, but given the professors a little more freedom. What led to the decision to make that kind of federated strategy?
So I want to talk first about one aspect of the guidelines that came out of the academic discussion. And we really quickly stepped back, given the speed of things, and wanted to create a sense of the guiding principles of what would be the values that would guide how we wanted to approach AI. And we landed on really some marvelous language around honoring human dignity, embracing transformative learning, and supporting ethical pursuit of knowledge. And so I want to start there because I think those guiding principles really influenced what we did afterward and are the strategies we would like, the values we would like all of our faculty, and indeed, I think this was something that the administrative folks embraced as well, how the institution would approach this technology and potentially other technologies. So I just want to start with that piece of the guidelines because those guiding principles became really central to how we wanted to talk about our use of AI at Wake Forest. And so within that framework, then we started realizing that there are significant disciplinary differences in terms of how AI was showing up in different kinds of classes, in different disciplines, in different levels of courses. A first-year writing course needs a different approach to AI than, let's say, an advanced computer science class. And so we really had to build that flexibility in. There wasn't any way a single policy was going to cover that and not be restrictive in ways that were just going to impact curriculum in ways that would then diminish the curricular significance of the courses that students were taking. And then the last piece is that academic freedom piece. We do honor the expertise of our faculty, their creativity, their ability to understand how their disciplines are evolving. And we wanted to give them the freedom to bring that expertise, to bring their understanding of student learning in their courses to the way they were incorporating AI or not into their classes where it was appropriate. It really was meant to be a roadmap, both with those values up front and then suggested questions to think through in designing a policy for your own course.
I would just add, although there isn't much to add to what Anne just said, but this is one of the areas where I thought there was a good bit of cross-pollination between the academic group and the administrative group. So the decision not to have a one-size-fits-all approach, I think, really resonated on the administrative side, because just as we have varied academic disciplines when it comes to AI, there's a similar approach or a similar application when we think about AI when it comes to the various administrative departments. So we thought that a one-size-fits-all would be constraining as well, and that we needed to provide a framework, which these guidelines are. And using that framework, that gives departments, whether they're academic or administrative, really the opportunity to have meaningful discussions about how they might take a complementary approach to based on their particular needs. And so I think this is the beauty of the approach that we use. Not only was it consultative, but then it allowed for varied uses and applications across the institution.
You mentioned, and I think you mentioned this, artificial intelligence is an emerging technology. It's currently what's there. I guess this is going to stick around for a while. It is the fastest pace of an emerging technology I think we've ever seen in history. It's moving at this rapid transformational pace. It's transforming every industry. Education is at the forefront. It's sort of the spearhead, the tip of the spear of what's getting transformed. We have guidelines. How is Wake Forest keeping up with the change and adapting?
I'll take it first.
Start it.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. The pace of change is mind-boggling. It's incredible. It's continuous. And seemingly every few months, there's another major advance in AI. So our strategy has to be equally agile. So we have adopted what I like to describe as a process of continuous and active engagement and exploration as we learn more. We're all learning in this space. And this is one of the reasons why we stayed away from a static policy. We just thought that wouldn't to stand the test of time. So we've taken this flexible approach. As you mentioned, this central hub that we have, ai.wfu.edu, is the primary, or I like to think of it as one of the primary resources for keeping the campus community connected with the latest resources, guidance, license tools. Even more dynamic, perhaps, than a website is the sorts of campus conversations that you've been having with various campus community members, various conversations using multiple channels. I just want to quickly mention the AI Fest that we hosted last year in 2024, which got good reception. We had over 200 faculty and staff attend for presentations and workshops from Wake Foresters, from industry partners. So this is just another example. We'll be doing that again in December.
December 15th to 16th.
That's correct. And we have an exciting lineup. So we're using multiple avenues for continuous engagement and collaboration with the campus community.
The discussion framework has a variety of questions for departments and colleagues to talk through together around courses, around curricula, around professional standards for AI. This was something that has been emerging in the last year in a really interesting way, is that our various professional organizations in different disciplines have developed and published standards for how you cite AI, like that you had AI as a research partner, as part of your writing process, as part of your data analysis. So different disciplines have developed different ways to show that. We also have, as part of our strategic framework, one of the identified areas of academic distinction for Wake Forest is our Emerging and Future Technologies group. That is a group of faculty and interested staff who are in deep discussion about emerging and future technologies at Wake Forest and how we want to make investments in those areas. And AI is a central pillar of that, connecting across even the other areas in that group. So those are ways that we are thinking about what AI looks like as we move forward. And the last thing I want to mention is kind of an interesting one, and you've probably seen it in the other podcasts that you've done with some of our faculty, is that we really encourage faculty to be flexible and experiment, and to bring students into that experimentation, learn with students, find projects or be open to projects where you and the students are learning at the same time. Because the technology is moving so fast, it can be a little scary to say, oh, I had this whole plan, and then the week before class started, some new version of AI came out, some new capacity. And so where we're seeing a lot of success for faculty is that ability to experiment and be open to learning with students.
So, Mur, I want to expand on some things you mentioned about some of the programming that the university is offering. You mentioned AI Fest, which was fantastically attended last year, and hopefully we'll shatter records this year.
We hope so.
And that's an annual event. Beyond that, though, we have some more frequent programming. We have AI cafes, which are monthly conversations that anybody can attend, and we rotate between virtual and in person. Those are just informal discussions about AI, where you can be an expert or a complete novice and learn or just speak your mind about AI. So those are wonderful things. You can find that on ai.wfu.edu. And we have some fantastic trainings. We do training on intro to AI, prompting, notebook LM, whatever you want to learn about. You can engage in that. And we have some other workshops and some other resources. But I just want to let people know that we have all kinds of AI stuff that people can come and learn about.
That's right. I'll mention one other that you didn't mention. We also have a set of curated resources, as you know, Ryan,
Yes.
that for self-paced through platforms like LinkedIn Learning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back into the classroom a little. Let's go to the teaching and learning. Wake Forest has been and currently is a national leader in many areas. We've developed programs and institutes that other institutions have emulated. How can we be a leader in liberal arts AI teaching and learning?
I think this one's mine. So I'm going to start, of course, as we do so often at Wake Forest with Pro Humanitate. What makes you a good AI user? It is all the liberal arts skills that we want our students to learn without AI and then with AI. So we're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about communication and writing skills. We are talking about people and relationships and the ability to test, to question knowledge. All of those skills, we are not going to lose sight of those. That's our liberal arts education. And those are the skills that make one a very effective user of AI so that AI becomes an optimized tool in the hands of such a user. And so some of what we want to do is really encourage faculty to keep teaching and helping students learn these critical skills. And then we look through how AI can be the best partner in those. And those are things we are supporting faculty through peer workshops and peer groups that work through certain issues. We want to bring this also to a local level where we have departments working on this together because departments share curricula. They can decide best how to move AI learning through their curriculum. It may not be appropriate for every class in the same way. And so that's a collective conversation that we are supporting the academic departments and the schools in having those conversations.
I will just quickly add, Ryan, there is also an administrative, if I can describe it that way, aspect of supporting those faculty who would like to use AI in their courses. So there's the aspect that we handle in terms of we information systems, in terms of licensing tools. So that's one aspect. We've also mentioned the various support mechanisms that faculty can take advantage of in terms of hands-on workshops and opportunities to engage with the tools directly, whether it's Gemini or Notebook or Microsoft Copilot, etc. And what we aim to do is to provide a set of tools that our faculty and our staff can feel very comfortable with using, recognizing that we've taken care of all the legwork that assures that institutional data is protected as well as intellectual property. So that's, again, this partnership that I think is so effective between what's happening with in the Provost office through Anne's leadership, through CAT, through the Center for the Advancement of Teaching, and then some of the back-end pieces that we handle as well.
So you've mentioned this nice framework and these guardrails that we have, put up to protect Wake Forest data and Wake Forest people in general. Now, students are often the driver of change. Their momentum and their innovation can lead to great pedagogy, but they move quicker than a lot of the faculty and staff, and often need some direction and instruction. What is Wake Forest doing to not only help the faculty and staff, but steer the students in the right way?
So, interestingly enough, I was going to mention this. So, we've just finished 2 surveys this fall that folks from both of our working groups put together. All of those have to be central elements to how we are helping our students learn, regardless of AI, and then become incredibly powerful tools when our students partner those skills with AI. That optimized combination of the human and the technological is where research data is already showing the most productivity, the most effectiveness of people who are using AI with that partnership. And that's where we want to continue to help students understand that there are critical skills you need to develop to be an agile thinker, to be a creative problem solver. And we're not going to exclude AI from this environment, but we have to do both of those at the same time.
With all these tools that come out, seemingly there's a new tool every day or a new crazy feature that shocks the world. Once again, we talk about the pace of change. This is daily. I talk about often, I listen to a daily podcast and the host says that daily isn't frequent enough in the AI world.
Mm-hmm.
So new stuff comes out all the time. Companies, everywhere from the big AI labs to just even a single coder, are releasing tools, but they're not going, it's not a lot of B2B. They're not going to do it. They're going straight to the consumer. And with that, these tools are getting into the hands of not only students, but faculty and staff as well. So with that, Mur, I'm going to go ask you this. Does information system have guidance for specifically faculty staff on maybe which tools to evaluate, which tools to use as we think about the proper usage, but also data security?
That indeed, Ryan, is the challenge that we face, that the pace of change and the pace of tools going directly to us as consumers, to us as faculty members and members of Wake Forest is remarkably fast. And our approach has been to first focus in on the major platforms that we use. I would argue, and I think most people would agree, that Google Workspace is the most widely used platform at Wake Forest. So that seemed like a logical starting point in terms of licensing tools. So that's where we started. The challenge is, of course, that while there's a multiplicity of tools out there, it's not always easy to get an industry partner like Google. Although in Google's case, we do have a license agreement with them. But other industry partners don't necessarily protect our institutional data and intellectual property. So that's a bit of a challenge for us. But we are working hard through our institutional mechanisms. These tools tend to be relatively expensive. Usually, when you think about licensing them across the institution for everybody, that could run into several $100 million. Several $2 to $3 million. Yeah, easily. So that's a bit of a challenge for us. We do want to be responsive to institutional needs. And the survey, I think, will help us, as Anne mentioned, better understand institutional needs across all aspects of the institution, from a faculty perspective, from a staff perspective, and from a student perspective. Academic departments as well as administrative departments do have the ability to license tools using their own budgets. And so that's
we get that question all the time. Can I go out and buy a Teams, a ChatGPT Teams license for my team?
The answer is yes, but
yes,
there is a yes and we ask folks to follow the institutional procurement process, because that's the process that provides the proper vetting in terms of information security, accessibility, data protections, etc.
So I want to just add to that an interesting element. The first national accreditor for colleges and universities has come out with an AI standard for accreditation. And it focuses a lot on the institution's strategies for ensuring privacy, security, and other values that the institution holds around the use of technology, and making sure that those policies are clear, and that the institution is implementing them and monitoring that there isn't a wild, wild west at your campus. So that's really, it's not our accreditor. It's not Wake Forest's accreditor, which is SAC-COC. It's the Middle States accreditor. But it's interesting that the first higher ed accreditor has come out with some policies, and they're centered around this particular issue. They're not explicit, again, about how do you do curriculum and learning with AI, but they are about how do you think through as an institution the kinds of tools you're acquiring, how you're training people in those tools, and how you're supporting your institutional values through those tools.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I would like to ask each of you a final question that might be a little bit of surprise, and I apologize. Please don't hate me, but I came up with this one shortly before our recording. So, oh boy. So, at its core, Wake Forest provides a world-class liberal arts education. And we root ourselves in equipping students to be leaders in society. We give them a well-rounded skill set. We teach them to succeed and thrive. So let's look out on the horizon. You pick the time frame, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. How will generative AI change pedagogy at Wake Forest? And what will the landscape look like? Will we function as we do? Or will we have to radically change?
I'll wade in first, or are you ready? So I think there's I just had an interesting conversation about new degree programs that have AI in the title. And at the moment, those are signals in the marketplace of how our academic programs are responding to this technological development. And we laughed because we wondered at some point very soon, maybe in 5 years, would we not need AI in the titles of degrees and majors? Because that would be like saying, well, this is calculus with calculators. That we would be in a space where AI was such a natural component of how students were learning that you wouldn't need to signal that in the names.
Be a foundational technology.
It would just be a foundational technology. And so that is part of what I would say. But the last piece of what I would say is that a mature space here for me looks like a world in which we have spaces that remain AI free in learning, like in learning in higher ed. There will be spaces that need to remain AI free because we want to develop particular skills in our human beings, right?
Just like there are spaces that remain calculator free,
that remain
or spreadsheet free, potentially.
Those, exactly. There will be spaces where we want to develop the human capacity to use the tool in very explicit, creative, and innovative ways. And then there will be spaces where we have discovered that AI can complete this task without us. And the world that I think is a good outcome of this rapidly evolving technology is one that we are not afraid to embrace those different kinds of spaces and value them for each of what they bring to us in our Pro Humanitate approach.
I don't know that I can add much to what yes. But I will say that, I think about it from the lens of generations of change. We've had changes over the last, let's say, 30, 40, 50 years when we think about the arc of the various technological advancements that have come to us. We could think about an era when calculators first became widely used. We can think about when computers became widely used, when I was entering college many years ago. We can think about the big shift to cloud technologies, where we used to run everything on campus, and suddenly there was a shift, And that allowed us to transform the organization in different ways. And now AI, right? So it's another iteration of change. So what seems to me to be enduring is what we have always done at Wake Forest, and that's educating the whole person, educating our students for critical thinking, for problem solving, for, as Anne said, in leadership and in character. So if we lean into our core strengths, technologies will come and go, and they will shape and have some impact on how we do things in higher education. But fundamentally, I think what endures is what we've been doing for a long, long time at Wake Forest.
And Mur, thank you very much. This has been a thought-provoking conversation, and I know that our listeners and now viewers will highly enjoy this. Please remember, if you have some feedback or want to continue the conversation, check out Deacs.AI at wfu.edu.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was a pleasure.
Thank you.